Streaming movies, music, and other content online was supposed to be the answer to outrageous cable bills and was to be the new frontier for media consumption. But is it all it's cracked up to be? Stay with us to find out.
Get ready for the 3324 podcast, where lifelong friends Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber share their love of all things music and movies. Dean has directed short films and is a music trivia buff. And Eric, trained in audio engineering, brings his extensive knowledge of music and film to the conversation as they discuss, debate, and celebrate their favorite albums, films, and much more.
Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast. Oh, I'm tired of saying it, but it's true, Eric. The premier destination for music and movie content. I'm trying to keep it up, but it's when you say the truth over and over again,
what happens? Does it start
I'll never get tired of hearing it.
Okay.
I'll never get tired of hearing it, and I'll never get tired of saying it. Damn it. This is the place. This is the premier destination. Why? Because you've got two hosts that know everything about music and movies, or we pretend to, or we really do a good job of faking it.
Yeah.
In addition to that,
probably more accurate.
Yeah, and then we have great guests that support that, and they believe that we know everything. So they're in.
Wow, you're brutally honest tonight for some reason. I don't know. This is going to be a weird show.
No, just
okay.
telling it like it is. As we close out our fourth season, we have to give a dose of reality. So, if you're new to the show, welcome aboard. This is going to be very different. We're kind of busting out some more roundtable style episodes as well. So we're taking a break from the dedicated music and movie content to kind of talk about a subject that's kind of starting to bubble up in some circles. The more I'm seeing things, and there's some other events that have happened that we want to talk about. So let me get to our guests, and then we'll kind of firm up the conversation. So first, of course, the professor, and he is dressed as such, Mr. Nick Leshy. It's so great to have you back with us. It's
great to be here. You speak facts when you say you are the premier destination. So.
Spitting fire. I'm spitting fire.
It's the truth. What are you going to do?
It's nice to hear.
What it is.
It is nice to hear. But,
get the extinguisher, because I'm spitting fire. Next up, Mr. Christopher Clark. He is usually our dedicated movie expert and has really given Eric and I a kick in the pants when it comes to
music,
making sure we come correct.
I was going to say now you're spitting out things that aren't true. That's not a fact. Yeah. I'm the music guy.
He's the music guy.
Very
you said the movie guy.
Chris,
but it is an interesting pairing because Nick Leshy is the movie guy. He's the guy that went and saw how many films last year, Nick? Yeah. You impressed the hell out of me. I was like, I didn't even make that many films this year. There's titles I never even heard of, but that's well done, sir. Well done.
He's quite prolific.
Yeah.
And Chris, welcome aboard, sir.
Good to be here, man. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting one. It's something that is kind of a little bit near and dear to my heart because as I've been assessing consumption, I think there's a lot of different factors when we're going to talk about streaming and what does it mean to stream and are there alternatives? We've kind of hit that I think that almost that tipping point of kind of are we at a moment of sea change? Right.
Okay.
So let me start it. Let me start the conversation this way. It's kind of how did we get here? Right. Back in the day, right. You could talk about DVD or VHS. Right.
Yeah.
There was from time immemorial, you were able to rent VHS and rent DVDs. Eventually, able to buy them. Mm-hmm. But that was the business model. Is you can buy it and watch it, and stuff that you really loved you would buy and you would have a collection, right? In as much as you had a music collection. Now you had a collection of actual movies stuff you didn't tape off of HBO, right? Like stuff that was officially released. So that was the model, and everybody was building their collections, right? Buying DVDs or laser discs, whatever the format was, or transitioning from one to the other. Same thing with CDs. We went from vinyl to cassettes to CDs, and you built your collection, and then this company came along that kind of said, we'll rent DVDs to you, but you don't even have to leave your house, right? And this company was called Netflix, and they said, you know what? Well, you sign up, you get 3 DVDs a month, or however many, and as soon as you watch it, you put it in the envelope we sent you, and you send it back, right?
Yeah.
And Chris, did you have Netflix from the jump? Like, do you remember? Is that something that was a thing for you?
Well, it was like right around the time, like I was like finished. Like I really remember Netflix, like around that like time where I was graduating college and still living at home. And I remember my dad and my brother and we would get Netflix, and it was kind of like my dad used it as an opportunity to you guys should watch these movies, and like all the movies from the 70s that he never got to show us. It was like, okay, well, let's find this one and find that one. Cause the early model of Netflix with those DVDs, it was like anything and anything you could possibly think of, they had a DVD to mail it to you. I remember that's how I saw a lot of the old punk rock documentaries, like Another State of Mind and all these other really cool movies that I wouldn't have been able to get at like my typical video store. And then that went away. And now now the way Netflix is set up, it's almost kind of limiting. It's not as like expansive, but there's also the ease of I just need to turn on my TV and not have it mailed to me either.
Well, yeah, and there's a couple of reasons for that. I mean, Eric, you were, I signed up for Netflix when it first came out, because I'm like, this is cool. I don't have to go to Blockbuster and browse around. I have the video stores now in my house on the computer. Right?
Yeah,
and were you a Netflix subscriber back then? No.
Nope, never did. I mean, I knew people who did it, and that kind of thing, and we, but no, I myself, no, I don't know. It just seemed like a lot of work.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'd much rather go to the video store and be able to pick out what and maybe they didn't have as much as Netflix provided.
Yeah.
But sure, you sometimes if you don't know what you're looking for, it's easier. It's so that was always how I kept myself sane in terms of just collecting stuff and over the years. But no, I never used the model. It was always Blockbuster
So you would just go in person.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nick, did you sign up for Netflix when it originally started, when you would get the DVDs mailed to you and you'd mail them back?
No, but some of my friends did. I was a big Blockbuster guy at the time.
Just like Eric.
And they were getting things back and forth. But once, we started getting, everything streaming, I was one of the, the adapters. So a lot of my friends weren't on all the streaming services. And I was like, yeah, give me all of them. When I moved, at first I was thinking of just cutting the cord completely and going without TV. But my wife was like, no, we need television, and this was before you had like the Hulu with live TV and all those other things.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, there's still issues with streaming, like the buffering and losing connections and things like that, But you said earlier at the top of the show how a lot of people thought this would be the answer to the expensive cable, where you get all these channels and you don't watch all of them. So, everybody's like, just pay for what you watch. But now everybody's got like 15, 20 streaming services and
so which we'll get to.
An answer.
We'll get to. Yeah. We're gonna kind of climb the ladder and get there. Chris, what do you got?
I mean, just to kind of piggyback on what Nick was saying, my wife is very much the same way. Like, she still has that kind of like, don't know that I'm ready to completely get rid of my cable box yet, and so now now I'm paying this ridiculous bill to Optimum on top of like all the streaming services. It just seems kind of absurd.
Yeah.
It's. Well, let me tie up this part, and then we'll get to cutting the cord and all those other things. Netflix didn't start their streaming model till 2007, so they had quite a few years under their belt of just the rental model with different tiers of how many DVDs you can have out at once. You can have 2, 3, 4, whatever, and you were just constantly mailing stuff out and stuff was coming in. And then in 2007, they said, okay, we're going to take the video store online, which was revolutionary at the time, and that was supposed to be the future, right? And it was the future. It was like, here's this service that you pay and they have everything, right? And that was what the dream was supposed to be. And probably around that time, I probably started boxing up my DVD. I had a huge DVD and huge CD collection. And definitely probably around 2007, I started just boxing up the DVDs because I could just watch it. It's like, yeah, I have Cool Hand Luke, but it's on Netflix, so I don't need to take the DVD out. I could just pull it up for $8 a month or whatever, right? And I think everything was all. I mean, Eric, did you do the streaming of Netflix at the time, like early on, or no?
At the time, no.
Okay,
nope.
Have you ever done Netflix streaming?
No. I mean,
so
now I have. I got the service.
Okay.
Well, we did. I had several streaming services. Which
okay, good. Good.
We'll get there. But
yeah, Chris, did you sign up for Netflix when they started streaming?
Actually, I didn't get Netflix streaming. I distinctly remember getting it when my daughter's 15. I think I got it when she was like 4 or 5, and the reason I remember that is because a friend of mine gave me her boyfriend's login to Netflix, and then my daughter decided to add her own account. And then suddenly I couldn't log in anymore, and my friend's boyfriend thought she was hacked, so I had to get my own Netflix account.
There you go.
Yeah, so I've had it about 10 or 12 years.
And you were just, and I mean, that's the way it was, right? There was literally everything was there at the time on Netflix.
Right, and I think I got it more for the fact that I wanted to watch the shows that were on there, like Orange is the New Black and The Crown. Like for me, it wasn't so much the access to the movies as it was, at least with Netflix. Yeah. The thing about Netflix for me was more the shows that they were putting on were like really well done, and the original content, the writing is fantastic. Like and even now, like I just watched one American Primeval. Like they do really good stuff. That's like really good shows, and that's the thing I think that draws people into getting all these subscription services is that like, oh, there's this amazing one that's not like the water cooler talk, and so now I've got to spend the $10 a month on this one on top of the other one so I can watch. So yeah.
So absolutely.
That's why I'm really into Netflix.
Nick, did you have this? Do you have this? Do you currently stream Netflix, or have you had? Yeah,
How long have you had? I have literally everything. Okay. I feel like I need everything. So you name a streaming service, I've got Broadway. I've got Shudder. I've got obviously Max, and Peacock, and
Shudder is horror.
Everything.
Horror films.
Yeah, I've got everything.
Okay. So I think you're going to be on one side and I'll probably be on the other. And I think Eric and Chris will be in the middle somewhere. Yeah. So everything was well and good. Netflix had everything. They literally had all the studios because they were renting all those DVDs. They, had the arrangements and no one thought any difference. Like, yeah, okay. You pay for it, pay the studios and you can stream, which was great. But then what started to happen and where the problems start, and Nick is a prime example of that, is all of a sudden, I don't know who it was first, doesn't make a difference. It might have been Warner Brothers or somebody was like, well, if their Netflix is making all that money, why don't we make that money ourselves? So why don't we just take all of our Warner Brothers films out and make our own channel? And this way, anybody that wants to watch the Batman movies and Lethal Weapons and whatever else there was, Clint Eastwood's or whatever, you're going to be able to watch it, but it's going to be all the Warner Brothers content. And then Paramount said, well, okay, we're gonna make our own channel too. And then Amazon, came up and said, well, we've got, we can stream too. If you're a Prime member, we'll let you stream. We'll let you stream for free. And then CBS, broke off, which became something, which then eventually became Paramount, and NBC with Peacock, right? And then Hulu was probably after Netflix was Hulu.
Yep.
And like Nick said, it goes on and on. There's Broadway, there's horror streaming, there's Quello, which just does concerts. So now what was once all in one compact place for one bill has now been spread out throughout all, everybody kind of took their ball and went to their own playground. Okay, which defeated the purpose of the response to all this. Was supposed to be, well, cable is $100 and something bucks a month. Cut the cable, Eric, right? And cut the cable and do this instead.
Yeah. Yeah, cable. I mean, I'm trying to get my parents off cable. I mean, because we're trying to show them the streaming, and it's you think it might be they're paying. I think it almost some ridiculous amount just to watch, just for basic. Mind you, this isn't like they don't have HBO, they don't have all the big channels. They just basic cable because of the internet and such. Excuse me, combined. They're paying almost like $300 a month, which is ridiculous. Yep. Ridiculous.
I mean, I was just about to say to Eric's point. One of the things that keeps us hanging on is we are a family of long-suffering Met fans. So I have the most basic cable you can get, and I've added Sportsnet New York to it, which is the here in New York the Mets channel. So for that, with my phone and my cable my phone and my internet is $245 a month.
Yeah.
On top of all the streaming services.
But the real thing that frustrates me, getting back to my folks, is, I mean, they're up there, but it's like they have physical copies of the shows that my mom is a devoted fan of, things like Outlander and all these shows, like I got her into that show. So that's all she talks about. But she watches the same fucking episodes, like they keep showing like the reruns of the season. Yeah. She has I bought her all of the seasons on Blu-ray, and you could watch the entire series from start, from where, and then the new season comes out, she'll watch that. Okay, so we'll get that physical cut, but they refuse to do that. My dad's watching the same 5 episodes of Columbo, which you can get the entire series on Peacock, or Prime. The entire run, and they just don't get it. They don't, it's like, and you're paying this kind of money for just that. You know what I mean? Like,
and you make a good point habits. Before I get to you, Nick. Yeah, exactly. I think there might be somewhat of a little bit of an age gap there in maybe some fear of technology or fear that if you get rid of TV, you might miss something. Right. Yeah. And I cut the cable. I cut the cable on TV years ago, probably well over 10 years ago. I said, there's not anything that is giving to me that I can't get elsewhere or for free. I get my news from YouTube. There's plenty of commentary, all different opinions. I can get everything I need elsewhere. So Nick, what were you gonna add to that?
Just the fact that it is a lot. And before, I related to what Eric was saying, because even though I'm not as old as maybe his parents or grandparents, it's like I used to collect DVDs, and before that, VHS tapes. And I had friends who collected laser discs, and it was that fear of missing out, like you said, Dean. It was like you wanted everything and wanted to make sure you had it. And cable was great because you had all these movie channels, and I'm a movie buff, so I'm like, I didn't want to have to not be able to see a movie when it came out on TV or something. And I still like going to movie theaters, but it's so expensive, So when these streaming things came out, I was like, yeah, this is great. And then I think Amazon Prime was the one that kind of put it all together, because it's easy for me to use that. DVRs before that, because you could just type in, okay, I want to see this show or this. And you didn't have to worry about what network it was on, what cable channel it was on, what time it was on. It was just recorded and you could watch it anytime. And then streaming, it was like that too. You just go to Amazon Prime and you type in the name of the show, or you use the voice thing, and it'll take you to it. It'll show you if it's not part of your plan. And that's when I get suckered in. I'm like, okay, I guess I got to pay for, BritBox or whatever it is,
Yeah. With the free trial.
I was going to say,
and that's what gets you those free trials, because it's 7 days. Then you forgot, and it's if you're paying by credit card, you have to really look and see it's all itemized, Yep,
absolutely.
I mean, the other thing, as far as like the bill and the cost and all that stuff with all these different streaming services, the other problem that I have, and I don't know, you can call me a cheapskate and whatever, but like I find it really bothersome that even with me paying for these services like Prime or Hulu or any of them, that I've got to pay to rent the movie. Like that's the other thing that really kind of annoys me. Like, because my son is way into football and stuff, and he's starting high school. And I was talking to my wife. I said, it'd be really cool it'd be really cool to show him the movie Varsity Blues. And I found it, but now it's like, okay, on top of my Prime account or my Apple account, I got to pay $4 to rent the movie. And I know that seems really insignificant, but if you do that enough, it starts to add up, and it's frustrating. Paying $10 a month on top of a $4 rental fee. It just seems really ridiculous. And
Dean, I think we had this problem like for the podcast. We would, you would say, hey, it's on Prime. And I'd refuse to pay for it. I'd be like, and I think we got into a little bit of an argument there. Not an argument, but like, so you're telling me that you wouldn't pay? I'm like, no, it is ridiculous. But you're talking like first run movies out of theaters. My daughter and my wife, they wanted to watch Wicked. I hadn't seen it yet, so like, oh, we're going to watch Wicked. Time to time we have movie nights, and my daughter was like, I'm going to buy it. I'm like, don't do that. Don't do that, because it was like $30 to buy, $20 to rent it. It's not available quite yet.
It's still you're still kind of getting a first one film.
Ludicrous to me. $20 to rent this freaking thing. She bought it, and I'm like, don't do it. And I kept telling her not to do that. I said, did they ever take this title off? Which they probably will at some point, because somebody will get the rights to it and they'll put it on another streaming channel. You're going to lose it. You're not going to be able to have it. She thinks she's going to keep it forever. I'm like, that's not going to happen. Because if they don't have that title anymore, you've thrown away money right there.
That's the one thing though I will say isn't too bad. Like that one I can almost live with, because I went to go see. The only reason I went to see it in the theater is because someone gave us movie gift cards for Christmas. Yeah. But like for each of us to go, I think it was like $16 or $20 at the end of all in. I think it was almost $100 for the four of us to go see a movie. So if I've got to pay $20 to see a first run movie in my living room, that I don't feel like I have to see in a theater, that I can live with. What I'm talking about is a movie that's like 30 years old, and now I'm paying a rental fee on top of my $10 monthly fee is where I get a little annoyed.
Go ahead, Nick, and then I want to jump off of something that Chris just said.
That's why, Chris, you have to become one of these loyalty programs at places like the Alamo or AMC or these other places. If you see enough movies, it pays for itself. Okay. But I mean, it used to annoy me with cable when certain networks or cable channels would not be on the air because they were going through those disputes because of the fees, or they want to be part of the
going through that right now.
Here, so that was annoying to me, because I'm like, I'm paying over $200, and you're telling me that the Yes Network isn't available or this isn't available, and they're going through their disputes, and it was nonstop, and that's what's happening now with streaming services. Like, I just got an alert that The Expanse, the series, the first 2 seasons aren't going to be around. These are the last 2 weeks to see it before it gets taken off. So will it be available somewhere else, or is that going to be something where if you don't have the DVD season collections, you're not going to be able to see it? I say DVD, now you got Ultra HD and all this other stuff, but it is becoming, like you said, if you have the digital version, it could just disappear. I subscribed to one, I don't want to mention the name, and it went defunct, but I had purchased a couple of movies from there, because these were like independent films, things you're not going to find on DVD. So I was like, this is great. And it was gone. And luckily I was able to reach out to customer service. A lot of people would just let that go, and now you lost that money and that content. But I reached out to them and they gave me a refund, but I don't have the content.
Yeah, you don't have
the content is not, but if you have those DVDs or even VHS tapes, you have it forever, but then you need the medium to play them back. And sometimes you don't have that. I don't have a VCR anymore. So all my, the collection of VHS stuff, that's gathering dust. But luckily I can still see my DVDs and, Blu-rays and things like that. But
yeah, Eric brought up an excellent point, and so did Chris. So I think we're going to take one. We'll take Eric's first, and Nick just hit on it too. So while it's fresh, the question comes down to if you engage in streaming, that's one thing. But then if you buy things digitally, which I've done from Amazon, they'll have like, The Fugitive for $5. I'm like, all right, well, I'll take that. So I have it. But the question is, what do you really own then? Is it likely Amazon's going to go belly up? No, but that doesn't mean that something could happen where that stuff does go away, right? Yeah. Where, whoever lawsuits and, we don't want our stuff streamed anymore or whatever, So there is that risk factor that Nick rolled the dice with. He bought stuff that was maybe obscure, couldn't find anywhere else, and is like, oh, I got it. I have it now.
Yeah.
And then that company went out of business, and they said, sorry, Charlie, like here's your money back, but you don't get to, you can't take it with you.
Right.
Is the bottom line. And then in conjunction with that, Chris was saying, I'll pay $20 to see a movie so I don't have to go to the theater. And that is creating, or is it? I'll ask you guys the question. You can go around. Is that mindset, and the same thing with Wicked? Is it part of a larger disconnect? Are we disconnecting from that communal experience? We lament, we on the podcast, when we do a movie or when we do a concert, music, we talk about, I saw this in the theater.
Yeah.
We went to the theater, and Eric and I went to the theater and saw this, and that's what made this podcast, is those communal events that we shared.
Yeah.
That create that bond. Now we'll start with Chris. Is all this playing a part of a larger disconnect with us being disconnected from the content, since it's so easy? We'll get into doom scrolling. That's next on the list. So you guys can start thinking about, if you don't know what doom scrolling is, we'll explain it to you, but we'll get into doom scrolling. But is this creating that disconnect, Chris? I know it's expensive, and you definitely, that's definitely a barrier to entry.
Right. Well, I mean, and that's the thing, like for me, it has to be, and especially when, you think about a family and a budget and all that kind of stuff, like I really have to want to see the movie and pay for the ticket to go and see it. Like Wicked, I saw the show on Broadway. I really liked it, but would me personally spent $20 to go see that in the theater? No. All right. But at the same token, the Dylan movie that just came out, A Complete Unknown, I went with my dad and my brother. I would have happily laid out the money for that because it's something I really wanted to see. So like, that's the whole thing, is like, those movies where you're on the fence about going to see, maybe I do want to see it, maybe I don't. To me, the ability to see it at home and see it with, other people and only pay the $20 fee makes it a lot easier to swallow than if I, I'm going to pay that money where I might not have, because I didn't want to go see it in the theater. But at the same time, I don't think everybody has that mindset either. I think you make a good point. I think we're very much in this age of convenience where it's a lot easier to just like, let's just all like watch it at our house and not go out and have that experience of a theater and seeing certain, some movies are meant to be seen in a theater. And I think that is being lost. Like last year, Ghost put out a concert movie that I made a point to go see with my son and my brother, because to me, that's something that should be experienced in a theater. Or like when I was a kid and The Exorcist came back into the theater, I went and saw that twice, once with my girlfriend and once with my dad, because to me, that was a movie that needed to be experienced in a theater. And I think people don't think about those things anymore. It's like there are movies and there are moments that should be experienced watching it on that giant screen. And I don't think that means as much to people as it once did. I don't know if it's the sense of community that's being lost or just the idea of like, it's cheaper and less of a hassle to watch it in my living room than to put on my sneakers and drive to the theater. Right.
Well, yeah, Nick, before I kick it over to you, a couple of things then. Chris almost kind of said, well, it's better than nothing, right? I'm not going to pay money to go see this in the theater, but I'll pay for streaming, right? And also, is the younger generation just desensitized to this because this is not how they're being brought up? They're not being brought up where you're going, except for when you're really young, your parents take you to the movies. But then once you become paying your own bills or doing your own thing when you're a teenager, you just have a device on you.
Right. And it's so much more disposable. Like, even I know we're focusing more on the film side of things, but I even think that's
music too. We're going to get
true for music. I mean, like as much as I love Spotify for the fact that I'm a music freak and I can listen to whatever I want, whenever I want, I think the fact that my kids lost that ritual and that community of, I found this in a unknown, some random bin in a record store that I never thought I was going to find this album, or Saturday night, let's, drive up Central Avenue to go to Tower Records and, we got money to burn and let's see what we want. Like that whole joy and that whole passion of film and music, I don't think this generation has, because it's so easy to have. And in some senses, it's so disposable.
It's very transactional, right?
Exactly.
So, Nick, what do you got?
I guess movies have been around for so long, 100 something years. So they survived TV. Obviously, you're going to have people that go to live theater shows, live concerts, live sporting events. But movies, for the longest time, were not threatened by television. But now they are. Now you've got home entertainment systems where you have the widescreen TV, the surround sound. So there's a lot of people that say, well, why should I pay money and go see it? And all the things that people hate about going to the movies, the fact that people talk and, that kind of stuff. To me, that's all the reason why I love going. There's certain things that you have to see with live people, hearing people laugh, hearing people gasp at certain points. I love that, and I like not having the distraction of watching something at home. Whenever I'm watching something at home, even if I turn off the lights and I'm just focusing, I'll get distracted. I want to drink. I'll go to I'll pause it. Or sometimes I want to be like, okay, I got to rewind it and hear that again. In a movie theater, you're really a captive audience, and you have to sit there and enjoy. And I love that about it. And there's certain things like seeing movies like I just went to see Clockwork Orange on the big screen. I'd seen that movie on TV so often, but seeing it with an audience, and some of those people in the audience were seeing it for the first time. That's the way to watch some of those movies on a big screen, the way they were intended to be watched.
Yeah. Eric, before I kick it over to you, Quentin Tarantino gave an interview recently, and he said, what is the point of making films? He goes, it's going to be in the theater for 4 weeks. It's going to go to streaming right after that. People don't really go out to watch it. So what is the point of making an actual film when the art or the experience really doesn't exist anymore? So
it's got a point. And is this in response to why are you only making 10 films? Is that, I think it was recent?
I think it was just I think it was generally just ranting about I think they were talking about, well, he said he's not going to, just to veer off, he said he's not going to make his last film until his son is 6 years old.
Okay.
Because he wants his son to be on the set, and he wants his son to have something to remember and have an experience. So the son is 5. He goes, but I'm not going to do anything, but I'm going to write. But he said, what's the point of that anyway? Because that whole, the magic and the majesty of movies is gone. It's in the theater for 4 weeks. They get what they can because the diminishing returns start almost immediately, sometimes in the second weekend. So we got to get it. We got to get it to streaming. So, but as someone who's really a physical media purist, do you still find yourself going to the theater though?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's the only, first and foremost, that's the only way to experience a film. And after that, you have seen it, you experience it, but I have to, I'm still going. I could own a movie. I have movies sitting on my shelf that I've had, Blu-rays that I've had for 20 years. Mm-hmm. Of course, before that, it was the DVD. Before that, it was the VHS. Mm-hmm. I've upgraded, but there's still like Blu-ray now, like 4K is coming into, but I won't replace my Blu-ray with 4K unless I don't have the film. Yeah. And and the only time I buy 4K is if it comes with the Blu-ray, because I have so I have both. Yeah. But you were talking about the kids not being desensitized. Yeah. Well, I took my youngest son, who really has taken the time to really appreciate my love of film, and I've been showing him movies left and right, and he's loving it. Last year we saw Close Encounters in the theater, 40th anniversary. I have it. Awesome. I've seen it, so many times. One of my favorite films, and the experience of seeing that again on the big screen was and it was the director's cut, like his third version. So the compromise there. I had never seen that version before in the big screen. Fellowship of the Ring, we saw. The extended cut, no less, on the big screen.
That's an investment of time.
Yeah, there you go. That blew us away too, because it was 4K. It was the 4K, which looked phenomenal. It sounded great. Rear Window was another one. Yeah. Fathom, the Hitchcock movie.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that blew my mind, because I had obviously never saw that in a theater. I only ever had the VHS or physical copy. Yeah. So going back and seeing these films again, it's like, if I own it, I don't care. I'll pay the money to see it on the big screen, because I have to.
Yeah. It's a special experience that kind of.
It is a shame, unfortunately, that like you were saying, like, they don't last. They don't, movies aren't made like that anymore. They're just
It's more of a commodity.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what changed. The pandemic really did its job, and but you would think that things are
definitely had an effect.
But I just don't think people, I don't, like you say, I don't think they care as much anymore. Like it's just not something that is that important to, and of course the prices and
it's easier to consume. Everybody has a phone. I mean, you see how many people are walking around with phones in their hands.
But how could you watch a movie on your phone versus seeing it on the? You know what I mean? Like I never got that.
If you're on the subway, you're commuting. I mean,
I was going to say,
But go ahead. What do you got?
I was going to say to your point, and it's unfortunate that Tarantino thinks like that because, like, to me, all of his movies are meant to be seen in a theater. Like anytime I have the opportunity to see it, like I still remember the first movie I ever saw his in the theater. I don't know how I got in because I was only a sophomore in high school, but I saw Pulp Fiction, and that's the thing about going to see it in the theater is like I think all of us have, especially I'm the group I'm talking to now, like you remember when you saw certain movies, like and it's not just like a thing where you go to a concert. Like I remember when I saw Pulp Fiction, I remember. And it's a sappy movie, but I remember when I saw Titanic, and even just like, you talk about people don't want to go because of the interruptions. One of the things I remember most about seeing Titanic is somebody, as Jack was put into the water, screamed out Jack Frost. Like, and almost 30 years later, I still remember that. And it's a funny moment that I've shared with 100 people. Right. So like that whole experience is like getting lost. And what I was originally, chiming in to say is I really do think COVID sped up the, or at least amplified people not being so quick to go to the theater, because to try and make the money for movies that were going to go into the theaters, you suddenly had all these movie companies like, well, we can't show it in the theater, so we're going to present it to you here on Amazon, or we're going to spend it. Like I remember the Bill and Ted movie, that was a big one that they did that with, and there were a few others that, and I think they realized that this model works, and if we can't get the asses in the seats in the theater, we're still going to make our money on television screens.
Yeah, and that kind of led to the original content that Nick was talking about, where, one that sticks out is that movie Manchester by the Sea, which was made, was in the theaters briefly, and Casey Affleck won an Academy Award, but it was Amazon owned. They made it, and then it went right to Amazon, and then it became. We can get these big names. We don't have to put the movie in the theater anymore because these actors got to work. And they gotta put food on the table. So if we're making movies and they're not going into the theater, but we've got 7 million subscribers, and we capture a fraction of that, it's still the same thing as if people went to the movies. So there is that
the production standards for these things are just
Manchester by the Sea was fantastic.
Yeah, you really can't tell the difference anymore.
There used to be that direct to video stuff that would be like, okay,
you could definitely tell the quality.
And you could discern, but it's become such a part of the of trying to capture those dollars of we have we got Martin Scorsese to direct Hoffa or whatever it was not
the Irishman. I heard You Paint Houses.
The Irishman, right? And
The Irishman,
it'll be on Netflix exclusively, but maybe it did a limited theater run. But
I saw it.
What I'm saying is they lure these people away, but what is it doing to that experience, Nick?
Yeah.
Think about what made Netflix go to streaming, right? It was just the delivery mechanism. The internet allowed now the delivery. So why are you spending money on making physical media and postage and bringing all that? So now kids have access to these devices, these phones, and they're able, like you were mentioning, watch movies on the bus, on, in class, if they can, get away with it, things like that. So the whole delivery system of just distributing these movies to theaters, that system is broken. It's like, I remember Titanic. You mentioned Titanic. That was on for months. That's how it became because it was never like making hundreds of millions of dollars a week. It was like this kind of, it just never faded. New movies came out and people were still going to see Titanic. And I remember as a kid, they were showing like King Kong, the original from the 1930s, and they brought all the kids in to watch it on the big screen. Because you had this system of, you had things like that, King Kong, just like repertory kind of movies playing that people would see, because you couldn't see it on TV without commercials and without, but now you're getting to see them all like digitally and streaming on your TV. So that system is so different. And if young people aren't going to go out, because movies is like, that's why, Star Wars and all these kind of like popcorn flicks became so popular, because they were driving the market. And, if you don't have kids going to movie theaters, we're not going to, old people like us are not going to be able to sustain it unless you're a movie buff. And even I need that loyalty program to go see as many movies as I need to see, right? Yeah. So why they're making more money, from streaming than they are doing it the other way.
Yep. Chris?
What I was going to say too is, like, you talk about kids, is like, not that my kids don't watch movies, but like when I was a kid, film and movies were kind of a big thing. Like, whether I went to the theater or like, my brother and a friend of his, we always have this conversation when we're together of like, remember those movies on HBO that you just watched over and over and over and over again? And now they're like kind of burned into my consciousness, and not necessarily that they were like, masterpieces of film, but like they're still important to me in my childhood. Like, things like The Wraith or like Iron Eagle, or one of those movies that was like constantly on HBO. Whereas my kids, as much as they like, like I said, it's not that they don't watch movies, but it's not as important to them because of like the immediacy of like, TikTok and Instagram and all those short videos, like watching a 2-hour movie doesn't right. And exactly. And it's always something at your fingertips. So it's not as much of a
meme
like
culture.
They really have to want to see it to want to watch it. Like, you know what I mean? It's not just something that's always on.
And of course, meme culture has really kind of brought movies down a peg too. Like, as you're watching, they'd rather watch the funny moments of these memes, like joking about the movie, instead of just actually watching the film.
Yeah.
And it's so out of context. You have no idea what the joke even is responding to, because you haven't seen the film. It's like, I don't understand it. I'm like, and that's the thing. We have these conversations, my kids are like, they love this shit, but they'll take the time to watch the film with me. So, they give the old man some, you know what I mean?
So let's flip the coin over. Let's talk a little bit about music, because that has become, and we can almost trace the same trajectory. Just put, although it's a little different, actually. There was the model. You buy your CDs, tapes, whatever it was. Then the internet came along, and Napster and BearShare and Kazaa and LimeWire came, right? And everybody started downloading stuff, but they were stealing. They weren't paying for it. And that kind of got clamped down. And then Apple releases a device called the iPod, and they release software called iTunes that goes along with it, right? So now you can get your collection of music onto this device, but then you can also just sit in front of the computer and buy individual songs for 70. I think they were like 79 cents when they first started, or you could just buy the album. You don't have to go to Sam Goody or Tower or Best Buy. You could just sit here and get the new releases, right? This is the same exact thing. So that tactile, what Chris was talking about. Oh, I have extra spending money. Let me go to Tower and just walk around. Eric and I spent hours just walking around Tower.
Friday night was my hangout spot on Friday nights, man.
Just kind of flipping through and seeing if
and
something,
that place was huge.
It was so awesome. Right? Seeing if something came in that we missed.
Yeah.
So that gave rise to the MP3 revolution of ripping your stuff and digitizing your stuff. But then all of a sudden that kind of gave way to Spotify. Now, let me ask the three of you. When I say the word Chris, when I say Spotify, what's the first thing you think of? Honestly, be honest.
The most important app in my phone.
Okay. Nick, do you have a Spotify account?
I do, but it's because my daughter got me to.
Okay.
Because it's like her generation. She's constantly listening to Spotify lists and all that stuff. So, yeah.
Okay. Eric, what about you?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same.
You pay for Spotify?
I do, because there's the content on there is
okay,
and a lot of obscure shit. Just stuff that you
exactly.
Yeah. So
just to, as of the recording of this, this is so coincidental. I did not plan this. As of the recording of this episode, today is my last day paying for Spotify.
Really?
I'm not paying for Spotify anymore. One of the first things that comes to mind with Spotify that I think of is they don't pay their artists. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing I think of, is how horribly these artists are treated, which is different than Amazon, who makes a feature film and pays their actors and pays everything, right? The second thing, before I kick it over to you, Chris, is, like Eric said, there's access to everything.
Yeah.
But the playlist I have that they give me plays the same 50 songs. Right? It plays the same 50 songs. It doesn't really put anything new in front of me. If I leave my daily mix number 1 or number 2, they're all variations. Mm-hmm. It's going to want to keep me listening. Their algorithm is to keep me listening. So they're going to keep giving me things that I'm comfortable with to keep me listening. Right? As much as I love X, the DJ, he's the AI DJ, and I got this for you, and this is what you listened to last year. And I got to the point I'm paying, I have like the multi plan, the multi account plan. That's $20. It's 18 something with tax. It's $20 a month.
Yeah, it is.
Right. $200 a year, which is crazy.
Yeah.
No, $240 a year. I'm sorry, Chris. What do you have? Jump in.
I was going to say, I mean, for me though, like when I think about $200 a year, how much did I spend when I was buying CDs every year?
Well, CDs? Here we go. Well, and here we go. I'm gonna turn your words against you, because Neil Young didn't like what Spotify was doing. He took all his music off.
That's right. You're right.
Taylor Swift. It took a long time for Led Zeppelin. So you're not owning any of that, right? So the $240 that you're spending, you could maybe be building your catalog, which is something I got away from. And like I said earlier in the show, I packed up all my CDs.
I actually gave all mine away.
And then what happened is my CD, I'm like, these are taking up too much space. So I took them all out of their jewel cases, threw the jewel cases away, and I put them in a binder. And then I put the 4 binders in the bottom of my closet, and there they sat for years. Mm-hmm. And because it's the same thing, I can listen to it on Spotify. I don't need to pull out these CDs. And I didn't have a CD player for the longest time. And I think in 2015, when I got into vinyl, I think that might have been like the beginnings, like the inklings of wanting that tactile experience again. Yes, I can ask my Echo device to play whatever I want, but there's something about going to the collection and selecting it, Nick.
Yeah, two things. I was going to say something first, but you just mentioned it takes space to have all this physical media.
Yes, it does.
Especially if you collect. So we'll talk. So we're going to get to it, then we'll talk about it. The other thing was just like all this kind of, I guess it's the Amazon factor and things where they recommend things for you. So before Spotify, I was listening to Pandora. So, and I loved it. I was listening to it back before it was called Pandora. I forgot what it was even called back then. But it was just like it would recommend songs that I never heard of, but it had this algorithm where it would figure out, based on the kind of movie you like to and replay and listen to. So I rarely was getting the same songs all the time. It was always something new and fresh.
Yep.
So now on Spotify, my daughter wants the premium version, right? Because she's listening to it a lot more than I do. So I don't really, but I agree with you about them. But I love how they recommends things, and you don't get that now. It's kind of like going through Tower Records and discovering new things. I loved hearing these new songs by bands I never heard of. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, Chris.
I mean, I'm torn. Like, just to kind of, you mentioned a few things. First of all, the thing about artists not getting paid, they don't get paid enough. But my question, and this is the thing that I struggle with, is it because of Spotify, or is it because of the record labels and the way that their recording contracts are structured? And the reason I say that is a few years ago, I listened to an interview with Brian Slagle, and I don't know if any of you know who he is. He's the founder of Metal Blade Records. And they were like a very well-known heavy metal label in the 80s, and they're still around. And he said that the way Spotify works and the way he structures his contracts with his artists, that they make almost as much as they do now than they did when they were selling physical media. So my question is he full of shit? Does he care for his artists more than other people? Or is it really Spotify that you blame, or do you blame these record companies that have become like these
conglomerate? No, it's Spotify that's setting the rates.
Is it Spotify setting the rate?
Yeah, and because you have Spotify, you have YouTube Music, and you have Amazon, and I think Spotify is one of the lowest. that pay as far as rates go. I just looked up because, Mr. Blue Sky from ELO just hit 1 billion streams. 1 billion streams. And I just looked up the average, what the payout is for 1 billion streams, and it's like $3 million for 1 billion streams. So if you sold that song for $1 and you sold 1 billion of them, you would have $1 billion.
But would you get all $1 billion? Because remember, everybody
even after taxes,
in the release,
again, it's
but
still,
not everybody involved in that record gets a taste. The producer, the record company.
But even this, it's the same difference here. This is what they're getting off the top, and then they got to do all that dividing and all that chopping up as well.
Right. So I mean,
you're not getting that. You're not getting it pre. That's not their cut. That's the total. Nick, what do you got?
That's why I'm one of the people that misses Napster every day, and I think I hate what the record companies did, because it was like all greed. Here you had something where yes, people were stealing music, right? But it was also giving garage bands the opportunity to distribute their music, instead of having to make the mixtapes and drop it on people, but here you had a system, and what happened, instead of, they misplayed both sides, right? You watch all the documentaries about it and you see, but if they found a way to monetize that and find a way to still keep like some kind of a free model where you could discover music, instead it became what's happening with streaming. You had to break it up. Yeah. And it's now become like, this kind of free for all Wild West, but people are still making the big money, and the artists, unless you're like the Taylor Swifts of the world, you're probably, no matter what your contract is, you're getting screwed one way or the other, Yeah.
Chris, before I kick it to you, Eric, you used to pay for Napster because Napster did monetize, right? And you used to have a subscription, didn't you, back in the day? I think you used to.
Very short time.
Yeah,
very short time. But
So So where do you land on this? With
I mean, Spotify, I'm thinking of cutting it out myself. I mean, because I've been listening to a lot more. I've been buying. I haven't really been collecting as much physically and music on the music side. But now I'm starting to especially like a lot of the groups that I love, and there are certain genres of music that I gravitate towards. So I'm not quite one of those people who have to have I have to listen to 50 new things in a day. You know what I mean? Like I'm always going back to something familiar, but yet I let the artist refer me to something else. And that's how I don't depend on the streaming services to show me, you checked, whatever. Cause typically, if you like these guys, you'll like these guys, and they sound nothing like what. Right. You know what I mean? So that's
that's why Pandora. I think Pandora had a great, whatever algorithm they came up with, I thought really worked because,
But you can make your playlists. You could do all this kind of cool kind of stuff. But I don't know. And for me too, there's just the whole idea of and this applies to movies too. The idea of having the biggest problem I have with the streaming is the fact that you have too much to go through, and I find myself
doom scrolling
and just and wasting time because I'm not committing to anything. If I'm not watching something original, something that they're putting out, I wish they would just have a channel where they just made original content, original new series. Have a sort of let the movies. Sort of the chips fall where they may there, but if they had like a division of some of these streaming services where they just devoted like all brand new content, new movies that they're making, but Netflix is the prime. It's a mess to try to navigate your way through that service. It's like, and I just end up turning it off and putting on something that I have because I can't. They all can't be bothered.
Yeah,
I can't. And same thing with music. It's like I have nowhere. I have no idea. Who should I be listening to right now? And I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just not the same. When you have that limited capability of knowing exactly what you want, and, it takes time, it takes patience, it takes taste, I think, in a certain, and you're putting something of yourself, you're creating something for yourself.
Sure.
Like you're not just, oh, I'll just listen to anything kind of thing, because I don't like everything, and I don't like every movie ever made, and I don't like every piece of, band and that kind of thing. It's just impossible, so I kind of set parameters. You have to,
Yeah.
So,
Nick, before I kick it to you, the thing that set it off for me was I when I had cable, I would literally do laps through the channels. I would go through the whole channels and get back to the beginning and then go through again. I'm like, all I'm doing is just carouseling. I'm just going through and I'm not stopping anywhere, which was what convinced me. It's like, none of this appeals to me. So why am I going to pay? And then, the same thing. I'll go to Amazon Prime and I'll see what's new and I'll just go through the whole thing. I'm like, okay, I didn't pick anything, and so, so having everything isn't necessarily great, because we don't want, like Eric said, I don't want everything. It's nice to know that everything's available, but I'm never going to use all of it. Like I said, my playlist, the playlist that I get served is ELO, Eagles, Chicago, stuff I could easily curate, but which is going to lead to how do we get to new stuff. But let me kick it to Nick and then Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I'm old enough to remember the days of when it was only like 4 channels or whatever, we would flip. Even if we were watching something good, when a commercial came on, we would channel surf, right? But that was only a handful of channels. Then cable came around and you're like, wow, 200 channels. But you would still sometimes, like you said, Dean, just carousel through all of them. And now you've got more than you could even number, right?
You only watch so many things.
Yeah, but and a lot of them understand that Netflix and all this stuff. You were talking, Eric, about trying to find original content. A lot of them, Paramount, Apple TV Plus, they have like features where it's like original content, like just like how they would subdivide it by genre.
Right.
But I still, even with that, I'm still like Dean said. Sometimes I sit down and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna look. I'll find something in 5 minutes. An hour goes by, 2 hours go by, and I spent
you don't know what to watch.
Watching trailers, looking things through, So
Chris, what do you got?
And it's to your point too, when it comes to that stuff with the streaming services, like I still find myself like going back, even for at least more so with the movies and the TV than with Spotify. But like I go back and I watch the same shows. Like my son has us all rewatching Ted Lasso right now. That's the show we're watching as a family. We watched it over last summer. And now we're watching it again. Like, I'm not looking for anything else on Apple. I just went back to that particular show and we're watching all 3 seasons again. But as far as like Spotify, what I like about an app like Spotify, and again, my conflict is the biggest things I struggle with Spotify are things like, I think it's taken away some of the things that got me into music and sucked me into music, like going through Dad's record collection, going to Tower and like, finding music and getting, tapes from my cousin and all that stuff. Like, my kids, as much as they love music, don't have that same kind of like passion or didn't experience those things. So there's like that, again, it's become very disposable, and I do also struggle with that issue with the artist, but for me, it's also like, there's this sense of like community where it's like, I'll get a text from my dad, I'm listening to this today. You guys should really check this out. And then I'll get another text from my brother, I just, when he got into Goose, you guys really need to listen to this band, and would send it to me. And you can make these collaborative playlists where you're making playlists with people that you're sharing music with. And now what I've started to do is not so much jump singles, but like my brother and I were doing this thing where every month we pick either a different artist or a different genre and listen to the entire catalog or listen to like important albums in that genre. So like right now we're listening, like last month it was Les Claypool and Primus, and this month it was Rancid and Tim Armstrong. And now next month we're going to listen to the records from the Seattle scene in the 90s. So like I don't rely on what they tell me to listen to, but I also have such a varied and wide, expansive taste in music that it makes it easy for me to have access to all those things and not have to keep a million CDs in my, 2-bedroom apartment with 4 people living in it. So it's like,
I get you.
There is that aspect of it.
Oh man.
I think, and I think we've hit on a lot of good, a lot of it is complaining, and that's what we're kind of talking about it, but it is. But I think we need to provide solutions, though. I think that's what I wanted to get to was, well, what do you do then? You got we spent the last 50, almost hour just talking about, well, how difficult this is and how it is. Well, we're not telling you to ditch streaming. I mean, it's going to be horses for courses, right? It's what you want. For me, I also found that there was overlap. I was paying for Spotify, right? and I also pay for YouTube Premium. Now I pay for YouTube Premium. It's only $10 a month because I don't want ads when I watch videos on YouTube. Mm-hmm. What you get with YouTube Premium is YouTube Music, which has everything that Spotify has plus more, because you can get the audio versions of stuff that people upload, live concerts and other things that come with YouTube Music. So I'm like, okay, I have Amazon Prime, there's Amazon Music also. Now it's not the full thing, but there's access to music there. Mm-hmm. Because I'm not going to get rid of my Prime because I order a lot of stuff from Amazon. So I think I would encourage people to look for things that's overlapped. I totally missed the boat that YouTube Music was a thing or how rich it was. And that's what I'm doing is I'm getting rid of $240 worth of Spotify. I'm still going to be able to look stuff up, but I'm also not going to it as often, right? Who talked about, Chris mentioned a couple times about storage. Okay. Mm-hmm. And this whole thing, and where this whole thing why this idea for the episode started, for me was, Eric sent me a box. He sent me a bunch of stuff for Christmas. Okay. And it was a t-shirt and it was a cool action figure in there. And there was 3 Blu-rays in there.
Yeah.
Okay. And I have an Xbox One that I haven't turned on in 2 years. So I get these movies out and I'm like, wow, I want to watch these, but I'm like, I'm not really equipped to watch these films. Which at that point made me assess the whole thing. It's like, well, why don't I have movies anymore, or why are they in boxes in the back? And that came to Chris's point of, I don't have a place to store these. It takes up too much room, right? I want to reconnect. I started buying, I hooked up. I got a portable CD player off of eBay and hooked it up to my receiver, and it sat there. It's like, well, how do I get back? How do I do this then? How do I navigate it? And I did come up with some things, and I want to share them because I think it's important to Chris's point, or for people that want to dip their toe into it. And there's one thing that I took away from all the stuff I was exposing myself to. And there's a difference between curating and collecting. Mm-hmm. I used to collect. I used to whatever. I used to work at Suncoast, and Eric did too. Whatever new DVD came out, I bought it and I just filed it away. I never even opened it. I gave away so many sealed DVDs, it wasn't even funny. So now I'm not trying to make myself feel like I have to get everything. I want to curate the stuff I want to listen to, the stuff I want to have a connection to, right? So I want people. If you take anything away, is the difference between curating and collecting. You're not just buying stuff willy-nilly. You're curating a collection of of the things you want. That in this way, the streaming is still there. If I need to, we need to do an episode about something that I don't have, I'm going to need that. Okay. Mm-hmm. Unless I buy it. But now it makes me more intentional about what music I want to listen to. Nick, you want to jump in real quick before I go?
Yeah, because I wanted to talk about just having too much stuff, and it started with books for me. Like before I was married, I would collect DVDs and books, and then my wife got me the Kindle, and I was like, I can never replace a book. But the Kindle, going on vacation where you can bring 500 books with you, that's amazing. But there's still things you need that tactile experience, like you said. So to have that, it still has. So what you were saying about curating, I think about it like clothes. It's like, you can't. There's just so many clothes that fit in a closet, right? So every time you get something new, you're looking like, I haven't worn this in a while. This has to go. So I think that's a great suggestion about curating. It's like after a while, it's like, okay, here's a DVD or a book that maybe I haven't. So I'm still guilty of just hoarding with things like that, So, but that's a great idea. I think people start thinking about it. How important is that? Are you going to watch that again?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or if you want to start a collection, that's exactly what it is. Don't feel you have to buy everything that's out. That again, there is a place for the streaming, but there's also a place. And Eric has been a huge proponent of physical media. He's been in since the day we started the podcast. Mm-hmm. He's been like, get it on. I have the physical media. I have the Blu-ray. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, dude, you could just stream it. Stop it.
Yeah.
Right.
But even you too, Dean, you always have every episode, I feel like every episode I've done with you, you've pulled up a vinyl of it. So
I do. And I said, that's what started it, but I have so many more, I have hundreds of CDs. So and I have DVDs that I have a couple of boxes left, but they're in a closet because they take up too much space. So I started to, I said, I need to, if I'm going to do this, I need to have my CDs out. They can't be in binders underneath a closet collecting dust. They need to be out so I can physically browse them and pull something to listen to. I'm going to put a link in the show notes. There's a company called Terrafold that has absolutely revolutionized what I have done with my collection. My DVDs take up this much room, and I have the box art in it. I have the art from so I'm replacing a big thick piece of plastic, the DVD box, with this where the art fits in, the movie is in there, and it's slim, and I can flip through and browse. I've done the same with my CDs. I've replaced one piece of plastic for another. The art is in there. It's flippable. And then for Eric, they make Blu-rays also, which are also the same as my video games. So so what I've done is I've been taking out boxes of plastic DVD cases out to the recycling for the past 3 days, because I've now afforded myself the ability to have my collection, but then also to buy more without feeling like, where am I going to put this stuff? Because now this is, I think this takes up like the room of like 3 CDs, maybe even less. It's easy to browse through. Nick, what do you got?
That's what I was going to say. How easy is it to browse through? Because I'm looking at that, I'm like, I got to get that. And then I'm thinking, how do I use just like my bookshelf? And I like seeing the spine. I like seeing the title. Like, those are like the records where you just kind of like have to kind of flip through it, or is it easy?
Flip through it that way. You flip through it like you flip through records. So I'm flipping through my collection, and all the spines are there. All the stuff's intact.
Awesome. I have to check
this company Terrafold has made these with the collector in mind, to preserve, because people want to preserve that box art. So I pull it out of the plastic, throw that in a corner, and then put it in the Terrafold. And now I had 3 boxes of DVDs. They are now in a little wicker crate with the Blu-rays that I can just flip through. And some of the boxes I kept, because some of the special editions have really special art. But now I have the ability to do that. I don't need to have the CD jewel case for this. I need the art, and I need the disc. But then there were some other ones like Highlander that I have, or whatever that I want to keep, or I have the Disney collection. So I want to keep those. So this relieves, I think, what Chris's stress point is I can't afford more clutter. I can't bring more shit, as it were, into the house, right? I can't really
100%.
So this was step 1. So Eric kind of kicked me and pushed me into the road with this.
Good job, Eric.
So then the next step was, well, where am I going to get, if I'm giving this stuff up, where am I going to get stuff from? Right? Yeah. Where am I going to get music from?
Where do I get more stuff?
Where can I get? Well, if I want to curate and I want to see what's out there, where can I go? Because most the big box stores don't really sell music or movies. Walmart barely sells any. Best Buy got out last year, and I think Target is done.
Target's vinyl. That's what you get at Target. You can actually get vinyl at Target.
So what I did is I started hitting all the Goodwills in my area. Mm-hmm. Okay, and your mileage may vary, but if you got the Goodwill, they were $1.99 for CDs, and I got a 3 CD Bruce Springsteen anthology for $2 in beautiful shape. I always check the discs. I got the Apollo 13 Blu-ray for like $4.
Wow,
so there are ways to do this, and then I went to my local library and I got a library card because the library has they stream movies. You could stream music for free, but graphic novels. It took me after like 40 years of not having a library card to get another one again. But then I found that my library sells used CDs and used movies, and they're $1 for the CDs. So I got the best of Sting for $1. I left 10 Summoner's Tales there. It's still there. It's $1. So I can now curate music that I want, not have to worry about where I'm going to put it or how it's going to be displayed, and not so that kind of loosens me up to maybe try something different or try a new artist, and before I kick it over to you.
Yep.
And then for new music discovery, I use Bandcamp. And a lot of major artists are on Bandcamp, and you can buy the music directly from the artist, so you're supporting them directly. All the big artists, small artists, I'm browsing through that and listening and say, oh, that kind of sounds interesting. It's like $10. I could take a shot on it. Chris, what do you got?
I was gonna just say, because you're talking about like finding alternatives like the Goodwill or the library and all that stuff. What about, I know you do vinyl too. Like the biggest thing that I always blows my mind is like when I was on the radio station in college, I would go to this record store in Connecticut called Trash American Style, and I could get the original releases of, like, I remember I bought a copy of Moving Pictures by Rush that was pristine on vinyl for like $5. But now today you go and you want to go buy a copy of, it's like $30 or $40. Like in those places where you buy used stuff, is vinyl still expensive by comparison, or is it like
vinyl? Vinyl is a collector's market now. So vinyl went from being the stuff that you could buy a crate for $20 of good stuff to now it's a collector's market. I got in right at the tail end of before it launched, so I got some good stuff. But yeah, when I don't buy vinyl because it's a value. I buy vinyl because it's something that's really curating. So I'm not going to spend $40.
It's something you really have to want. In other words, if you're going to buy it on vinyl.
That is pure curating. So the next step I took is like, if I'm not going to have Spotify, what am I going to use to listen to? And again, to reconnect with my
I saw this on Facebook.
My collection, and yeah, I've resurrected my Zune. Okay. The Zune is one of the best music players, but what it was, I mean, this is like probably 2008. This is, getting close to 20 years old. I replaced the battery. I took the 30 gig hard drive out. I put 128 gig SSD in here, which is more than enough. And now I'm back loading songs. I'm back choosing music. I'm back making sure that, I'm picking, I just got a CD from eBay that I didn't have, that I thought I had, that I didn't. There's what it is it's more intention. There's more intention in my life when it comes to this, and and it started with when I opened Eric's box and it had the fucking Blob in there. I'm like, oh my god, I want to watch. Like, he bought me the Blob. I'm like, I want to watch this. I got excited. I'm like, oh my god, he heard. We talked about it. And I made a brief knockoff statement about it, but he got it from me. I'm like, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And it made me then just rethink the whole thing. What am I really doing? What am I really getting for my money? What am I getting my money's worth? Or for the $20 I'm not spending on Spotify, spend $5 and go get 5 CDs from the library of stuff that I'm picking and expanding my collection. Maybe it's classical, maybe it's Sinatra, maybe it's whatever it is. Even if I spend $5 of that 20, I'm still coming out ahead, Nick.
And you showing the Zune player made me think another positive thing about digital music.
And it was the brown one, and I almost I almost jumped out of my seat at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2 because when he gave him the Zune, I'm like, yes, motherfucker, like I have the brown Zune. I used to be a Microsoft rep. I'm like, this is And actually, it sorry to cut you off, but it made Microsoft actually have to re-support this because people saw it in Guardians and they started going to get Zunes, and Microsoft's like, we stopped supporting it. We have to they put some drivers in for Windows 11 because people started getting these. So anyway,
but what I was going to say was like the good thing about digital, and there's many good things about it, but like Amazon gets trashed a lot. But I remember somebody stole my CDs. I had them in my car. They broke in. It was like the only time I'd ever been robbed of anything. And I got really annoyed. And Juliana, my wife, was like, you bought it from Amazon, right? So I went, and they had the digital backup, which I got when I bought the CD. So every digital thing that I bought is still available there as long as it's still available.
Well, you got to download it.
But that's what I'm saying. But even if I download it and I lose it, I bought it. So it's still part of my Amazon account. So I could still download it again if I get a new computer, if I want to download it, because I paid for it. So it was all there. I was like, oh, I could just burn it on another CD, back when I had CDs. So that's the good thing. That it does have its benefits of being digital versus if I just had a physical medium and it got burned or it got destroyed or lost or stolen, it's gone,
Yeah. Yeah, and well, I got I backed everything was backed up. All this music is backed up, and I feel good about it. I feel like I'm reconnecting. Vis-a-vis the show, which is a different way of reconnecting. But now I'm looking through my old collection. I'm like, oh my God, Andy Fairweather Low, that the album from 07, 08. And I listened to it today, and I put that on, and that I listened to the album. And when I go out, I'm going to put the Zune on and listen to another album. And what I think what it has is yeah, I think, and maybe it's an age thing. Maybe there's a generation gap, but maybe that there's this longing to reconnect with that stuff and have that even though it's not physical contact, to have some type of emotional contact to the music that I want, and have that tactile thing that Eric has been really the biggest proponent of since forever. I mean, he really has not ever wavered from his love of physical media. He's always been like, yeah, I'm getting this, I'm getting that. I'm like, dude, like that is so like 2006, like buying stuff. And he's like, oh, I got this, and now I'm looking at him like, yeah, I want to be able to. It's going to be easier for me to pull out my thing of DVDs to flip through and say, oh, I want to watch On the Waterfront, pull it out and put it in, and I got a projector, so I throw it on the wall and I sit back and I watch it.
But there's so many now, like you say, collectors. It's a collector's market now. Everything is like, some of the shit that I buy, you can't even get it right away because people are buying it up and selling it on eBay for double the price, which is, again, another annoying factor. But again, it's that curating aspect. It's, you want it. Well, maybe I do need to pay a couple extra bucks for it or whatever, whatever. I have some examples here of, some of the stuff that I have had for quite some time. And this you can't crush down into a little piece of plastic. The Alien Anthology, you can't find this anywhere anymore. This is not 4K. This is the Blu-ray, but this box set is amazing. It's the content in this alone is the artwork, the guy that put this package together. Mm-hmm. He does all of Ridley Scott's. He's like the video biographer of all his movies. He did Blade Runner. He did Gladiator. He did, the documentaries on all 4 of the original Alien films, including Alien 3, which is fascinating. And this is the kind of shit that I like to have too. I love the features. Mm-hmm. The features to me that could be a whole evening in itself.
Yeah. Sure.
You even have to watch the movie. You could just watch how it was made or listen to the director's commentary or whatever. I talked about Close Encounters. Here you go. There's that little, where's the button? Yeah.
Oh, wow. Jesus.
Nice.
Well, that's like the Pink Floyd live album that came out in the 90s.
So, so I like this. And this is, and I'm a huge fan of Criterion. This is Guillermo del Toro's his trilogy of the Spanish films, Pan's Labyrinth, Devil's Backbone, and Kronos. This fucking thing looks like a box of chocolate. You open it up and it's like folds out.
Beautiful.
This, and then it comes with, look at this fucking,
good Lord.
Look at this fucking book. That's a book right there. It's like a storybook. Yeah. So this is, collectors wise, this is what people are going for. But I also, again, you want to talk about tactile experience. I mean, they're commissioning artists to do this.
Yeah.
So I support that. I have that in mind when I'm looking at these glorious like sets and like, I want that. I have to have that. You know what I mean? So like, that's the way it's been. I have an entire, I don't have everything. I have a very moderate, it is, I have 2 bookshelves that are, niche, some of the boutique like Criterion and Arrow has been putting out some wonderful stuff. American Werewolf in London, the artwork on that, again, the booklet, it's just, that's the kind of stuff I keep in mind when somebody's actually drawing this. It's not the old poster art. It's something new. Somebody got paid for this. And if I'm contributing to that in some way, somehow, I don't know if they're getting any money by people buying this stuff or whatever, but still, I just have that in my crazy brain thinking that well, I'm supporting them.
Sure.
I'm supporting.
No, you absolutely are. You're helping to keep it alive. Absolutely.
And again, it's putting something of myself, like, like I'm proud of the collection I've accumulated. So when people come over and they can look on my shelf and say, "Oh man, look at that," like, yeah, I like showing that off. I like, and again, with Dean, with the vinyl, I was impressed in just a very short time when I came to visit.
How much I amassed.
This guy, he, because he had, like Dean had said, like as a kid, he never really collected vinyl. He didn't have that experience as a kid. Right. I mean, and I come to your house and you got almost over 200, vinyl records on a shelf. I'm like, wow, I never had that many when I was, I still don't, you know what I mean? So like, you really went for it with a passion. I mean, and that's something that, you just can't, it's not quite the same, when you're just, it's in the cloud or,
it is.
Know what I mean?
Yeah. So well said. So well said that it is it's personal to everybody, right? It's a personal thing. And we're certainly not trying to, I think we've covered a lot, and I think we're just trying to show both sides of the coin that we live in this instant gratification kind of model right now where everything you can just pull up. Yeah. But there's something to be said for taking control of it. Right. And wrangling the snake and getting it to do your bidding and saying, no, well, I want to listen to the stuff I want to, when I want to, and how I want to. Right. And, and to that point, I do want to just offer some alternatives too, because we talked about getting rid of like all these streaming systems. There are some great free ones. I can't cry to the stars enough about Pluto TV. Pluto TV is free. Yep. And I remember when Pluto first came out, there was like 2 channels. One of them was World Poker Tour all the time. When they showed commercials, it would be 3 commercials, but it would be the same one over and over. Now Pluto TV it's free. It'll always be free. There are movies on. They have one channel that's always showing all the Indiana Jones movies just over and over. And there are commercials, but they're uncut. Yeah. Another one just shows The Godfather. Another one's just showing 007. And then there's a channel near and dear to my heart that just shows Three's Company. They show all of them, and then they start over and they go through them again.
I'm particular to the old Unsolved Mysteries reruns.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Pluto TV for me has replaced what I was getting out of TV because I get my news online anyway. So my entertainment is there. Nick mentioned Pandora. Pandora is free, and they have a great he's correct. Their algorithm is great. I highly recommend Jeff Lynne Radio because you get Jack Johnson, you get all these interesting artists that kind of come through. Tubi is another free one, great. But I think they're either just bought by somebody major or getting bought by somebody major. I think Tubi is going to be streaming the Super Bowl for free as long as you sign up for a free account. You can get the Super Bowl. So I think what I want to put out there is that there's options.
Yeah.
That I don't want people to feel like you have to have Spotify or you have to have this. There are ways to get things, me getting a library card and then looking at what they had available for streaming, and they have a lot of foreign films and they get a lot of artsy stuff. And so I'm not kicking all this stuff to the curb. I can't. We need streaming as a part of our lives. It's we're living in this age, but there is room for that other experience, where you're stopping, which I got with vinyl. When I'm choosing the record, I have to put it on. I have to sit there and listen because I have to turn it over, when it's done and flip sides and then sit back down and just and calm myself and not just have music on all the time as a background thing, Nick.
Yeah, and there's a couple of other tips too. Like if you have a library card, check in your local area because you might be getting some free streaming stuff with your library card. Like Canopy is one that has really esoteric, kind of things. And if you are subscribing to cable, you might be getting some free streaming stuff that you might not be aware of, So that's why if you have Amazon Prime, a lot of it, just check what you got because it's all Amazon Prime kind of, collects a lot of the stuff and you see it and it'll tell you what's free available to you and what is not. And you'd be surprised how many streaming services you might already be paying for and might be getting. So,
yeah, Chris.
I think the bottom line is, and I mean, to just kind of, the point I think we're all trying to make is the idea of like, do your research. And then after you do your research, do what works for you best. Like there you go.
Well
and
said.
that's just it, is like it. And I think we're just too quick to say, take what's being given to us and saying, this is how it should be. But I really think if you take the time and look at what's out there and say, okay, this works for me, this doesn't, I can live without this, but this is what I want to have, and then do what works for you. Like that's really the bottom line.
Yeah. Yeah. It comes down to options. I think we very easily put the blinders on and get tunnel vision, right? And we, like I said, I've had Spotify for, I can't tell you how many years. And it's like, I need Spotify. I need to have it. I'm like, well, but I have,
yeah, I don't know that I could give that
I have
one
The
up.
Miracle by Queen on CD and I want to listen to it, but I'll never think to pull it up on Spotify. But now that I have this stuff out and I'm flipping through, I'm like, oh my God, I want to listen to this. And I have I have 400 CDs, and I'm like, all this stuff is sitting there just like dormant, but I'm paying someone else to have access to it.
Yeah.
And like I said, the new stuff, I was scrolling through Facebook today, just quick as we wind down. I was scrolling through Facebook today, and I've been getting served a lot of new music artists on Facebook. And there was this woman, a young woman, she's singing like jazz standards. And I clicked on it. I heard what I like. And she goes, I'll give you the CD free if you just pay for shipping. So I went to her website, $5.99 for the CD. She's going to autograph it, and it's in the mail. And as soon as I paid, I got the email for the digital download. So I already have it. So it's already on my Zune, but then I'll have it when I want to listen here. So this is manageable. It's manageable to find new artists. It's there. Like I said, Bandcamp has been great. Also, I've been kind of checking things out and, doing that. So if there's just a little bit of intention, you can kind of navigate this and listen to the things you like and find new stuff. Eric, is there any tips you have as we close out?
No, it's just like Chris said, just, do the research. It takes time. It takes patience. It takes, it all comes down to, whether it's nostalgia for you, whether you just, it's like a time capsule, some of this stuff for sure. But again, you can't own everything. If you try to go down that well, you'll go insane, and just don't chase things that aren't important to you. Just, if you look at something, if you have it in your hand, do I really need this? Do I want this? Do I, what, and also too, what else is this thing offering me? There's a lot of movies out there that have no features, that have nothing on the disc. I tend to like, okay, well, that I could probably, I'll watch that movie on a streaming channel, because if you're not going to give me anything more, then I don't really need this right now. I'd rather shift my focus to something that extra content. I like that kind of stuff. Some of this stuff is my film school. I never went to film school. I should have, but I learned a lot from this stuff. I learned a lot from the source of how, things were made. And yeah, that's the stuff that I really focus on too. So,
yeah. All right.
But yeah, like I said, before you know it, you got something that is special to you and you alone, I mean, you could share it with people, of course, but at the end of the day, it's all about what you like and what you love. So there you go.
Cool. Yeah. Chris, any closing words?
No, man, I think Eric put it very succinctly. And again, what works for you. Like, I'm not somebody that, like, for me, the music was always the main thing, and the packaging was always kind of secondary. So for me, like, that's why streaming works for me, because if I have access to the music, I'm happy. But I also understand the idea of, I already have it, so why am I paying for it? So, I mean, again, it goes back to what works for you. You have to do what works best for you, and access to what you are trying to gain access to in the way that's the most convenient and cost efficient for you as a person.
Cool. Nick, final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, some days I wake up and I'm so happy the cloud is there, where all the stuff will be backed up, all my digital pictures and videos, and I don't have to worry about it. But it could disappear tomorrow, right? So I like what you said about curating, and when you're trying to get rid of some of the stuff you have, ask yourself what gives you joy. Whichever one of you said that, I think that was fantastic. Yeah. Look at it and say, does this bring joy in my life? Am I going to look at this again? Is there going to come a day I wake up and I'm like, I want to reach out and physically have it? That's a good way to measure what to keep and what to kind of put it away in storage somewhere or give it away. Some other person might find joy in that. So
yeah, Yeah, absolutely. So to close out, we're going to put links. I'll put the link for Terrafold via Amazon to their store. They have all types of storage. Even if you're only going to buy a couple of CDs, I'm not saying go hog wild, but it just makes it a little bit easier to manage and to get into.
I might look into that for my CDs. I have a whole bin full of CDs.
Yeah,
so
it was a game changer. Eric, I'll text you some pictures of how I have it organized.
Okay.
We'll put a link for Terrafold. We'll put some links for Pluto TV, for Tubi, for Pandora. I think though we want to provide you with some actionable resources if you want. Again, like everybody said the same thing. It's kind of like what you want and what you want to get out of it. And we're just trying to give you some opinions and kind of talk. And I'm glad we were able to have this conversation. I think it was so valuable to kind of get some of that stuff out. And maybe other people were feeling the same way, or just kind of, or just, get you to think about where all that money is going. Cause I also had the HBO, Hulu, Disney Plus package that was 18. That's gone too. It's like, again, it's, when it comes down to it, it's value for the money. Am I paying them just to scroll each month? Is it a scrolling fee? Right. What is it? But if you're getting the value out of it and you're watching it, then great. It's, that's what you're getting out of it. So that's going to do it for this episode of the 3324 podcast. Like I said, there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff in the show notes. So you can check that out. If you want to continue the conversation on Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook, we're happy to share more information. I'm happy to share any tips, tricks. You have more questions about how I made this change over, and Eric has a lot of information too about what he looks for when he's shopping, and Chris and Nick as well. So if you're looking to kind of what does it mean to curate, any one of us can answer that question. It will mean something different to you, but we can kind of point you in the right direction as well. So that's going to do it. Nick, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
The professor delivered as always. Christopher Clark, thank you so much as well for your valued insight and hitting some of my launch points before I got to him, which was perfect.
Good. I'm glad I could help.
The segue master.
There you go.
Got me right there. And of course, Eric and I, we're going to continue to bring you episodes each Thursday, and hopefully more roundtables to come. So for Nick, for Chris, for Eric, this has been Dean. And please go out and buy some music and movies.
You've been listening to the 3324 podcast with Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider, so please like, subscribe, and rate to become a part of the 3324 family. Your feedback is important, so make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at 3324 podcast and on Twitter at 3324p to join the conversation.